Hi, this is Savannah Donovan, and I'm coming to you live from Meadowbrok Park as part of our Connecting You with Nature hike series. This is our third hike out of 4, and so today we're at Meadowbrok Park, and then in 2 weeks we're going to be going to Perkins Road Wet Prairie. So we've got our map of Meadowbrok Park here, and we are starting at the Race Street parking lot. So we're going to hit the trails. Now we're going to primarily stay on the soft paths, so more of the natural areas, staying away from kind of the more frequently visited paths. There are a lot of people who visit Meadowbrok Park each year, and we're going to do our best to, not film anybody who's not part of our crew here. So let me introduce myself and my camera person. My name is Savannah Donovan. I'm the Environmental Public Program Coordinator at the Urbana Park District. And my camera person is Prahl, the Environmental Education Coordinator. And we both work at the Anita Purvis Nature Center. We're very happy to be bringing you on a virtual hike today. So let's go ahead and hit the trails. We've got some walnut trees on the side here, and I can hear the squirrels talking amongst themselves. There's a few in the tree here. They're crunching on the walnut shells, trying to get that nut meat inside. There's going to be a lot of squirrel activity at this time of year because, of course, squirrels are getting ready for the winter, and they're gathering as many nuts and food sources as they can find right now. So this is the windmill here. There's a small windmill garden. And I'm going to show you around some of the other structures that we have here. Again, we're at the Race Street parking lot side of Meadowbrok Park. This park is 130 acres, so you can also access it from Windsor Road as well. There's another parking lot by the Prairie Play Pavilion. So this is called the Garden Pavilion here. It's rentable. People do programs and events here sometimes. And then to our right, you can see the Meadowbrok Interpretive Center. So that is an old dairy barn. This part of Meadowbrok Park was a farmstead. It was the McCullough family farmstead. There is still the farmhouse, and then the corn crib are 2 other structures that we'll see over here. Today we call the barn the Meadowbrok Interpretive Center, and we use it for programs and events. We plan to offer some interpretive exhibits outside of that building. You can see some beautiful fall colors here. This gorgeous maple tree turning colors. So we are already going to leave the hard path. So we're going to walk across this field here, and we're going to follow the soft path to the creek. So right now I am headed south. If you look just to the east of us, this is a grove of trees and wildflowers that has undergone a lot of restoration in the last few years. This is called the Hickman Wildflower Walk. We're passing by some other hikers. We're going to try to avoid them. Now, one of the things you can see in this grove here is a nest box. It's a little wooden box there on a pole. And that nest box is specifically for eastern bluebirds. Boxes like that are usually monitored by volunteers who will make sure that eastern bluebirds are the species that are nesting there. It's not because we don't like all bird species, we definitely do, but eastern bluebirds need a little bit more support. They like to nest in tree cavities, and when there's not a lot of dead trees around, they don't have a whole lot of habitat. So we augment their habitat by providing these nesting boxes. You can hear probably some kids enjoying Meadowbrok Park right now. All right, so we're going to start heading east on this soft path. So some people might be a little intimidated by the soft path system because, you know, it's not a perfect circle like the hard paths are, but you can't get lost out here at Meadowbrok. You're really never far from the hard trail or one of the parking lots. Just by kind of paying attention to which direction you're facing, I think it's easy enough to navigate. And they do have maps available at the entrances and also online if you prefer to look at a map before you come out. It's starting to get kind of chilly here, but I'm surprised by all the insect noises that I can still hear. There's a nice example of a dead tree here on the right, Chelsea. I'm going to get closer and take a look. Oh, we've got a question coming over our comments section, and the question is, do sparrows kick bluebirds out of the nest boxes? I have heard that house sparrows can be pretty aggressive against the eastern bluebird, and so I think that's possible. But from what I understand, usually once the nest is built, you know, they kind of have secured their territory. I could be wrong, there may be examples otherwise, but one thing that people do to deter the house sparrows from nesting in those same boxes is they design the entrance of the box a little bit differently. So house sparrows are pretty inclined to use a circular opening, but eastern bluebirds, they'll nest in a box that has a slot-shaped opening. So you might hear them called bluebird slot boxes, and that's the reason for that. It helps to deter sparrows. I want to take a look at this fallen tree here. I think it's probably an ash tree, but it's pretty decomposed, so it's hard to tell. Yeah, this is certainly an ash tree. Chelsea, can you get up close here? Can you see these squiggly marks here? There's more this way. These are the trails that the larvae leave, the larvae of the emerald ash borer. And then when the ash borer is an adult, it exits the tree through a D-shaped hole. So that is what killed this tree here. This tree was killed by an emerald ash borer infestation. And actually, nearly all of our trees in Champaign County have been affected by this insect. Some trees have been especially, taken care of to try to prevent the ash borer. There are ways, don't ask me how, to, try to protect trees against them. But it's really not cost effective to try to do that to entire forests of trees. So here's what we've got. We've got natural decay in action here. So at some point, a big branch of this tree fell down. We're walking through a Park District natural area. Now, if this tree were in one of our neighborhood parks, or it were near a sidewalk or something, we would certainly cut down that limb and, we'd want to keep it looking pretty and clean and safe too. We certainly wouldn't want a limb to drop on somebody. But out here in a natural area, we are trying to promote kind of the natural decomposition process. So as this dead tree, as part of it remains standing, it's going to provide all sorts of habitat for animals like the eastern bluebird, but also bats, raccoons, possums, owls, all kinds of critters can utilize a dead tree like this. As it decays, it's going to have more insects, which will provide food for other animals like woodpeckers. And I kind of think it makes the landscape more interesting too, right? Who wants to go to a natural area that's super groomed and looking perfect? And here's another dead ash tree up here on the left. This one's not quite so decomposed, and I can tell just by looking at the bark from here that this is an ash tree. I'm learning plants still. I'm still learning to identify plants and trees, and I like to think of it like learning a new language or a whole new alphabet. Every tree bark, every leaf is different, and sort of like getting to know new people too. So after a while, you can recognize the face, just with a glance. You can kind of read that language of plants without having to inspect too closely. But this is very characteristic bark of an ash tree, sort of diamond-shaped furrows. And then of course it's falling off. So the ash borer eats the vascular cambium. That's like the tree's circulatory system. It eats that layer and cuts off the tree's circulation. Check this out. Where the bark has come undone from this tree, you can see sort of like wrinkles on the tree. Now that's something you wouldn't normally see on a living tree, right? It's going to be covered up by the bark, but it almost looks like human skin or like elephant skin. The soft paths occasionally, especially down by the creek where we are, we'll get some standing water, so I always like to wear sturdy shoes when I'm walking on these paths. I notice over here some holes. I'm going to let my camera person Chelsea get in here and show you these holes in the ground. To our live audience out there, any guesses? No guesses yet. Okay, so a lot of people, when they see holes like this, they might think snake. Nope, that's not it. Other guesses I've heard are mice. Maybe it's a mouse burrow, right? Well, the only time I see holes like this near the water, it's always crayfish or crawdads. So these are outlets of a crayfish or crawdad burrow system that's right underneath our feet. So wherever there's a high water table, you can find those sorts of holes. Under the right conditions, they build up the mud around the outlet, and it sort of stands like a chimney, and they call those crayfish castles. So we can see those on this trail sometimes too. It's a nice deer path going down to the creek there. Continue to head east. I'm going to keep heading east here. Now, just to my left is the main path, so I can still see Meadowbrok's Community Organic Gardens. There's a sculpture there. So again, we're really not far. And right here is another access point. So, if you didn't pick up the soft path where we got on, there's another opportunity to be able to get onto this path. Thought I might have seen a chrysalis. You know, I'm trying to figure out what kind of plant this is. I think it's in the cherry or crabapple family, but I'm not sure. If you think you know the answer out there, you're welcome to shout it out. You heard that bird? That was a woodpecker kind of calling off to the side here. You see a mix of prairie plants in here. We've got some milkweed. Now the flowers and the leaves are all gone, but you can still see the milkweed pod. That was maybe my favorite part of our last hike, was opening up that milkweed pod. I've been told I'm a very tactile person, so I connect with plants and nature often by touching. We do encourage people not to pick seeds, plants. You know, this is not a place for collecting. But here I'm just going to help to spread these milkweed seeds around. So it's just started sprinkling a little bit. We did check the weather before we came out, like responsible hikers, and I don't expect that we're going to get much rain. But if it picks up, we are going to go ahead and cut out because we don't want to get our technology wet. So just a heads up. So there's a sign here. This is a nice reminder of the rules for our Park District natural areas. We do not allow bicycles or dogs, whether they're leashed or not, to be in our natural areas. And that's just to be able to maintain, you know, the integrity of the ecosystem and the habitat. We want this to be, you know, a safe place for wildlife. Rain's slowing down a bit. That's great. So we're going to cross over this little bridge here. It's going to take us across the creek. This is the Douglas Creek. It is actually the headwaters for the Embera River. When it's sunny out, you know, you might see little fish or crawdads here on a sunny, warm day. This is a great spot. Now there's a deer with antlers down there. It's coming. Just about to say a great spot for deer to come down to drink. So that deer just got right into the creek down there. We definitely have an overabundance of deer, white-tailed deer, here at Meadowbrok Park. We have a lot of people who visit here too, so that kind of means that these deer are not as afraid of people as maybe they should be. You know, I've been hiking a lot in a lot of state parks and natural areas, and usually, you know, a deer's not going to come towards you when you're talking, so I'm surprised it didn't run away right away. So we crossed this little bridge here. This is a good time to point out that this soft path is not universally accessible. So, you know, if you're somebody with mobility issues, I'm very happy to take you on this virtual hike. You know, there are uneven paths and small steps and things. It also makes it, you know, you have to have the right kind of stroller if you want to take your kids on a stroll through these natural areas. But there are wonderful places to sit and enjoy. Nice rustic bench. we're starting to head south a little bit here, and I can hear people on that paved path just on the other side of the prairie. I misspoke earlier when I said I was crossing Douglas Creek. I was crossing McCullough Creek. I'm sorry about that, folks, and thank you, Judy, for calling that out. I can see lots of these seed pods on the ground. These are the pods of the honey locust tree. This is kind of torn up. Some animals will eat these pods or the seeds inside. I'm told that coyotes will chew on them, and sometimes I do see like dog tooth, like canine marks in them. So we are walking along an edge habitat here. There's a deer right there to the left, Chelsea. On our left, we have a wooded area along a creek, and to our right, we have restored prairie. So we have two kinds of habitats intersecting here, and this is the type of edge habitat where you can find a lot of species diversity. So you're seeing both woodland species and prairie species here. White-tailed deer frequent both. So there's this deer still on my left, and we're just going to quietly walk by and see what she does. Got those big ears pointed at us like radars. I'm just gonna hear each of our footsteps. I have a tip for viewing wildlife, and that is, here's another deer creeping up here. I think that's the one that got into the creek. He's got a small rack of antlers, and she's coming back out on the path to see what we're doing. So my tip for wildlife watching is to try your best not to look directly at the animal that you're wanting to watch. So I didn't want to scare that deer when I walked by her, and so I didn't stare right at her. Kind of watched her from my peripheral vision. But think about this, you know, most of the wildlife around here are prey animals. They are watching out for predators, and predators look like us. They have eyes on the front of their heads that point straight forward at their prey. So just the look of a human should frighten most animals. You know, when we put our gaze on wildlife, it makes them very nervous. All right, so here we have a fork in the trail. If I were to continue on the left fork, that would continue to take me down McCullough Creek towards the Prairie Play parking lot and that side of the park. Instead, we are going to kind of loop around to the south again here, and we're going to start following this prairie path back. don't think the camera can get it, but there's like swarms of mosquitoes dancing. They're kind of flying up and down. And I hear lots of peeps. I'm not sure what bird species that is. It might be goldfinches. There are definitely some little birds flitting across the path here. Maybe we can get a glimpse and a more definitive identification for that. It might be some kind of sparrow. You know, at this time of day, when the light is low and you're not really, you know, identifying markers on a species, it can be really difficult for me, and novice birder, to be able to tell just by the shape and the sound what bird we're seeing and hearing. On the other side of the path, all this tall grass is big blue stem. It's the state grass of Illinois. Actually, this one is an Indian grass. It looks like most of the seeds have either fallen off or maybe they've been eaten by birds. Alright, so I saw a field mark on one of these birds. Definitely some kind of sparrow. We're at another crux in the trail here. You can see this time I've got two other options, and then if you look over this way, another set of options here. So if we turn to the right and we start heading back to the west, that's going to loop back around to the parking lot. And then if we were to come and take this path here to the south, that's going to take us up to the hard path. And heading on this path, that's going to take us back to the Prairie Play, the Windsor Road parking lot side of the park. There's prairie all around. So, you know, we can really have a very enjoyable prairie walk, whichever direction that we choose to go. But I am going to choose to start taking us back this way because I am feeling some raindrops on my cheek. So I mentioned some of the wildlife that lives at Meadowbrok Park. We saw some of the wildlife that lives at Meadowbrok. A lesser seen species is the coyote. We also have red foxes here too. So as I walk, I'm going to look for signs of some of those other species. And for that, I like to look down. I might find tracks, but mostly I might find scat. So that's the droppings of the animals. And coyotes in particular, but also red foxes, they like to leave droppings right on the trail. So it can be kind of a surprise sometimes. Now these don't look like dog droppings, you know, dogs who are eating food, domestic dogs, right? Eating like food that you buy from the store. It's a little bird visiting us over here. They eat a lot of meat from other animals, right? So their droppings have a lot of fur in them, sometimes bone. It can be kind of interesting. And as they decompose, you might only see kind of a pile of fur left there. So I'm gonna take a look for that as we walk. I'm not sure, but I think that sparrow might have been a white-throated sparrow. Lots of these prairie plants are starting to shut down for the winter, so many of them have dropped their seeds. Their leaves are falling off. They're going dormant for this season. If we came back here in January or February after it snowed, lots of these plants will get kind of flattened to the ground. And then in the spring, it starts all over again. So you can really visit the prairie each month, and it's going to look different to you every time you come. So this is recreated prairie here at Meadowbrok Park. There once was prairie here, but as we mentioned before, this was the McCullough farmstead. So this area was farmed before the Park District started recreating prairie here. Habitat restoration processes, they change over the years. You know, we learn different ways of restoring habitats as time goes on. Here at Meadowbrok Park, we've got 130 acres, and that land was acquired over 25 plus years, starting in about 1967. And so each time, you know, a new area of prairie was recreated or restored, kind of the management practices were a little bit different. So you can see a little bit of those differences as you look through the different zones of prairie here at Meadowbrok Park. Some of the management tools that we use include mowing paths or letting mowed paths go back to prairie. We also conduct prescribed burns as necessary. I believe the target is to burn each natural area like this prairie at least every few years. And what that does is it returns all of this above ground matter back down into the soil, putting that nutrients back into the soil, and then also creating space and sunlight for new plants to come up. So when a prairie is managed with burning, you can see the species composition of that prairie change a little bit. It makes it more favorable for those plants that tolerate or even, you know, benefit from being burned, and it helps to keep the trees down. This is a nice, almost gone example of a compass plant.
One of our viewers would like to know how you can tell the difference between coyote droppings that have dried up somewhat and owl pellets.
They look super similar. They really do. The owl pellet, I think it might retain its shape for longer, because an owl pellet really has no meat or anything else in it. The owl pellet doesn't go through the entire digestive tract. It just, you know, gets formed in the crop or the gizzard of the owl, and then it gets regurgitated, and it tends to be a very pelleted shape. The largest owl pellet I've ever seen, it was about like this big. But coyote scat tends to be longer and it's kind of got a different shape. The fur that I tend to see is more prominent. It's like more laid out than kind of wrapped into a bundle. That's a really good question because I have had that thought before and I've noticed that similarity before. I think location is going to be another big cue. So I don't think I've ever found coyote scat under a tree, but that's pretty much exclusively the place that you'll find owl pellets is under a tree. Because we had a cloudy day here, we're starting to lose light. Chelsea, let me know if you think it gets too dark for our viewers. We're doing good so far? Excellent. There's a bird flitting through the grass. There's another one. See, I just scared him up. These birds were probably, finding a nice spot to rest on the ground here and eat some seed before bedtime. Kind of stirred them up. I have to say, this is the most relaxed I've been all day. This is such a peaceful place to be. There's a nice little breeze. You can see the plants swaying in the wind, hear all the birds and the wildlife. It smells great. Air smells fresh here. So there's one deer standing and another one that I think is still lying down. And we're gonna try to be respectful. I'm gonna keep my eyes off of them. We're just gonna quietly pass. I heard them rustling earlier, but I thought I was just hearing birds. And then I got so close to this deer before I saw her looking right at me. It is amazing how such a large mammal can camouflage right before your very eyes in the prairie. Her coloration is just perfect camouflage. I can hear a second deer moving and I just now see it. I think it's a fawn. Yeah, this appears to be mother and her baby. And we're just gonna walk on by and everybody's gonna mind their own business. If you're watching out there and you have not visited a natural area like this, there's a lot of people who live in Illinois right now who didn't necessarily grow up here. A lot of people from other places think it's super fascinating to see white-tailed deer. Now, if you spend a lot of time in these types of places, you might think it gets kind of dull after a while. But if you're somebody who wants to, have their first experience seeing white-tailed deer in the wild, Meadowbrok Park is the perfect place for that. see the deer path that goes off through the plants there. So that's a deer path. If you see a trail and you're not sure if it's really a human trail, it might just be a deer path. Now, obviously we are doing these virtual distance hikes because we can't all be together right now. But we are certainly looking forward to a time when we can do this again with a group of people. In the meantime, you know, I really encourage you to get outside to nature as much as you can. You know, even just going into your backyard can be a huge relief of stress. But Urbana has a lot of parks and natural areas, over 20. So there should always be, you know, if you live in Urbana, a place nearby where you can experience a little bit of nature. There are a lot of proven benefits to time spent in nature. You know, it's not just, you know, people saying that that they feel better, but it's actually documented. So people's cortisol levels drop, their blood pressure drops. People who spend time in nature, even for just a short while, can have a recovery of their attention. So if you're feeling like you've lost focus, that kind of thing has actually been measured by some wonderful scientists here at the University of Illinois. Some of you might have heard of forest bathing or Shinrin-yoku. That's the Japanese practice of spending time in nature around trees just for its proven health benefits. Right now, I am offering Shinrin-yoku with your household. So if you feel like you would like a guide to take you on a kind of quiet and meditative walk through nature, I'm your person. Give me a call at the Nature Center or send me an email. Before we go, I'm going to give you that information. That was a larger bird that just flushed from the prairie in front of us. It sounded like a woodcock's wings, didn't it, Chelsea? I can't say what it was though. It might have just been a morning dove. It's like a pile of string here. I wonder if that was from a bird nest, maybe? There's a frog on the path. I'm not sure if it's a frog or a toad, but something just hopped in front of me. All right, I'm gonna take off my backpack for this. Okay, folks, bear with me here. That's a toad. Oh, toad, you look cold. He's hopping pretty slowly. All right, now if you're a nature kid and you've picked up toads before, you know they'll probably pee on you right away. So be careful with this toad here. Hey! This toad looks funny. Is something wrong with its right eye? Might be missing its right eye. Hey, buddy. I think this is a female toad because she doesn't have a dark neck and she's not chirping or anything. So like all of the other animals around here, she has got to get ready for the winter. Now we hear insects outside, so we know she's still got insects to eat, earthworms around, but she's going to do her best to eat as much food as she can and then dig a shallow burrow in the prairie somewhere and sleep for the winter. Our light's getting pretty low. I think it's just about time for us to say goodbye. There's one more opportunity I wanted to tell you about. The Anita Purvis Nature Center will be opening for private group visits starting on Saturday, November 7th. So just like the Shinrin Yoku for your household, these programs are reserved for household groups. So anybody who resides within your household, we do ask that you wear masks when you enter the facility or if you attend a program. Visits for the Nature Center are totally free. If you're interested in one of the Shinrin Yoku for your household hikes, those are $25 for up to 90 minutes. And then both we have a limit of 8 people in your group. If you would like to learn more about either of those opportunities, you can call us at the Anita Purvis Nature Center. The phone number is 217-384-4062. You should be able to find that on our Facebook page as well. There should be a call button somewhere on the page. And then if you'd like to reach me directly, again, my name is Savannah Donovan. You can email me at sydonovan@urbanaparks. That's urbanaparks.org. So it's been wonderful. I look forward to our last hike together in 2 weeks from today. That's going to be at 5:30 p.m. at Perkins Road, Wet Prairie. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you then. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more light. It won't be so cloudy that day. Thanks for joining.